Rock Talk is brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteRock.com. Check them out at cnht.org. Check us out at GraniteRock.com and listen on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. I think I got them all. This is also posted to my YouTube channel. Just look for NH Steve. You'll find it there. Shows up on my Twitter page. Shows up on our Rock Talk Facebook and Twitter feed. Plenty of places to check it out after the fact. It is a podcast primarily. We record it for that purpose because it's easier to digest it when you start to break it up, and you can listen to it on your own time, and you can listen to it in your car, and you can listen to it while you're making dinner or while you're over the toilet, whatever it is we cause you to do while you hear what we have to say. And we're not done saying it, so we're going to keep going. Jane brought an interesting bit of information in this morning, something that's news to all of us, and it might be news to you too, so we'd love to share it. Yeah, great. We had a board meeting at New Hampshire Right to Life last night, and at this meeting, somebody gave the board members this information packet on the AMA, the American Medical Association. And they call it American Murder Association. But yeah, terrible That's thing. Awesome.
Well, you know what? There was a Dr. David McCallop that went to the seminar, or I guess this organized meeting, where the AMA was going to vote on something called Resolution 224. And this was an aggressive support of Planned Parenthood by the AMA. This was in November 2015. And so this doctor from Florida was at this meeting, and he knew that this vote was coming, and he was one of very few in the room that stood, I guess in one hand, the number was on one hand, that stood against this Resolution 224, which was a strong support for Planned Parenthood. And of course, there have been many people in the life spectrum done a whole lot more than I. I'm pretty new to it last couple of years, but I was fairly shocked to know how deeply embedded the AMA is, not just with Planned Parenthood, but with fighting to promote actively euthanasia in this country. And they also support something that's called POLST, P-O-L-S-T. They were discussing it, I guess, at this meeting. And they've embraced both of these things through a very strange language. He quotes here, the AMA has already embraced an invalid, quote, ethic that states that physicians should be, quote, prudent stewards of shared societal resources. The AMA. Even if it meant rationing care and ending the lives of the sick and elderly to save money for society as a whole. At this meeting, they also began evaluating language supporting POLST, P-O-L-S-T, physicians' orders for life-sustaining treatment, a measure to promote euthanasia of people when they become sick and in need of medical care.
So, as soon as you need a doctor, they're going to kill you.
Well, this is very timely for New Hampshire Right to Life, because right now we're starting to engage in what personhood really is all about. Personhood is on of course, the New Hampshire Republican platform, right? It's something that's embraced. It's basically life, you believe in life preborn all the way through natural death. And while we've been concentrating most of efforts for the past decades on the first part of that life, supporting pro-life activity, we now have a huge baby booming generation that's getting old and gray. And I truly believe that we can make the most inroads on life in general if we start focusing on that last piece of the spectrum, because we're all getting older.
And the baby boomers don't want to give up, but the kids who are being robbed blind by taxation, mostly passed by the baby boom generation, let's not deny that fact, are going to get fed up of paying for it. If we're not careful, we're going to have a Lord of the Flies moment. When the young are going to say, we don't need you old fogies.
Right. Well,
let's kill them off.
We know that is kind of what's underneath all of this, is that, again, the morality issue, right? If we can get that out of the way, we can all become, like they said here, we can all embrace shared stewards of societal resources. How scary is that? So right now we're seeing that happen in hospitals all across America, where they're telling parents that have a baby that might have a defect, slow carrying that baby in the hospital or refusing care for that baby in the hospital, not signing off on resuscitation orders, that doctors are actually not doing that and doing it under the radar in order to not have to save these babies that are in life-threatening situations, happening a lot. So go to the other end of the spectrum, and let's say that you're 65, right? You're retired. You're not paying into the system anymore. You have no more tax dollars flowing, and in fact, you're taking out, because let's say you're getting Social Security or you're getting Medicaid, Medicare, whatever, right? You're taking money out of the system. We're now at the place where if you need care, you are a fiscal reality to this shared societal stuff, and you may not get the care you need. You may not get that cancer treatment because you're kind of old. If you're older and you need a hip replacement, well, you know what? That's a lot of money. We don't know if it'll even work for you. Maybe it's better. Blah, blah, blah. I told the story I hadn't told before at this Respect Life seminar I spoke at last week. Kind of surprised because it came out without being scripted. But my mom passed away 4 or 5 years ago. And we, 8 kids, right? And the hospice people sold us a bill of goods that we bought. And I'm ashamed to say that I fell for it myself, saying that since my mother was going downhill, we should just stop all water, all food and water, and just allow nature to take its course, right? And they were so practiced at it. I mean, we're all pretty savvy. There's no weak link in my family as far as the 7 siblings and myself. And we agreed to this. It took my mother a long time.
Terry Shava.
It was.
Stop food and water.
It was. And at the time, we didn't know it. Well, now knowing what I know of how this all works, we are, at least myself, that's there for the rest of my life to know that I participated in that because I just didn't know better. Think of all the other people that are participating in this. That is euthanasia, folks. Mm-hmm. Somebody that is not ready yet to pass through to the next, the next
whatever
life.
It is. Yeah.
Right. We should not be precipitating that. We should not be doing it.
Well, we certainly should not be facilitating a government with the power to precipitate that. Under no circumstance do we want the government deciding who they shall allow to commit suicide.
Yeah.
It's just not a good place to go.
No.
And Obama's been there from the beginning. Let us not forget. Your mother's getting pretty old. Maybe it's time for a painkiller.
Just take a pain pill.
Yeah. The only red pill, blue pill choice I want is the one that lets me step outside the goddamn matrix so I can destroy it.
No. It's very sad. And I don't think people get it. While we're sitting here talking about all this political crap and how corrupt we are, right? There's nothing more real to you, a human being, than knowing that your end is coming. You're going to die, guaranteed. How do you want to do that? Do you want to do that with somebody else having the power? Do you want to empower a doctor so much that you become a number on a spreadsheet rather than a human being that they are supposed to take care of through their own oath of saving and making life better? It's time to wake up, and it's time to understand that this is going to happen. This could happen to you very, very easily.
And don't we think it's already happening to the veterans? I mean,
it is.
Basically rationing care by finagling the appointment system so that they don't have to serve as many.
Slow care. It's called slow care, and it's something that in the life movement we're hearing more and more and more about. They can't say they don't give care because that's a big fat negative. So what they do is they implement something called slow care, and they actually get to what their end is, though they look like they are offering care. It's so subpar, and it's so, in its essence, not condoning life, not assisting somebody in pain, not helping somebody. It's actually getting to where they need to be, just a little slower.
It's an interesting debate because the Die with Dignity crowd, the assisted suicide crowd, they're all like, well, you're in chronic and horrible pain, and you should have the right to decide. Maybe you do have the right to decide. Go sit in your garage, turn your car on, and just breathe it in until you die. Here's the problem. They think that the government is going to let them have what they want.
Yeah.
They think that if they die with dignity or assisted suicide, that the government isn't going to want to regulate that. The government wants to regulate everything. They're certainly not going to let people just randomly exterminate each other. They're not going to do it. It's like with the medical marijuana thing. I said, yeah, maybe it's a great idea to just let people do what you want, but the government's not going to leave you alone. They are not going to let you do anything without them being involved, and that ties the marijuana thing into the NCI, the NICS list. And now we've got a situation where people who thought they were doing the good thing now have given up constitutional right in pursuit of something.
Right.
You've got to be aware of that constant threat, because it's never going to go away. Right. You are never going to be able to do these things without interference from the government in the current state of the world that we're in right now. It just doesn't work that way. So you can't give them, and that's the worst power of all, to allow them to decide the mental health issue.
Oh my gosh.
You know, people will at some point. Oh, well, first of all, people in general have a strong will to survive. They're not going to be the ones that are going to sign their own death warrants. It's got to be really, really bad before they do that. It's also cowardly to ask somebody else to do it for you, because you make them into a killer and you ruin the rest of their lives, even if the government permits it. Which leaves you with the very unpalatable situation that if you have this sanctioned death cult, the only people who can do the deed without getting jailed for it are the government.
Right.
Which is exactly what you have with abortion too.
Right.
Is people of conscience can't bring themselves to do it, shouldn't do it, and so the people that do are the ones that are sanctioned, even paid by government to end lives.
Yeah. Subsidized, really wicked. So this going back to this article, he talks about how it's clear that there is a large dead zone in the AMA as a whole, and
is that intentional choice of words?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And he mentions how within this meeting, by the way, this vote for this resolution was 363 for and 71 against. I mean, it was overwhelming. The clear message for America, we are dead inside. By a 363 to 71 margin, the AMA physician leaders stood against life itself, rejecting a call to defund the corrupt abortion group Planned Parenthood. Every effort was made to prevent the AMA from revealing their true nature. As predicted, parliamentary maneuvering, political threats, and mockery were used in an attempt to prevent even an open discussion and vote on this matter. The AMA does not really want America to know that they occupy a dead zone on life, one illustrated in practical and symbolic terms at this meeting itself. So, to me, I mean, I was quite, of course, maybe I'm naive, but I thought that was pretty mind-boggling to see how progressive and left the AMA is, and, won't support life on virtually any part of the life spectrum. It's all political progressivism.
It is. The AMA is a kind of a fringy left-wing special interest group.
Yeah.
And it used to be that, but they are now. They've been taken over.
Yeah.
So people just need to understand that's what they are. It's like I always tell my kids, I say, look, once you understand where they're coming from, it's easier for you to process what they're telling you. And then you need to make a conscious decision about what makes sense to you. And it just, again, falls back on eventually somebody's got to regulate this, and that's going to be a government.
Yep.
And you don't want to go there.
Well, we're there now, because with Medicaid expansion here in New Hampshire, that was the big kahuna. And
yeah, there's lots of strings and rules and awful, horrible things going on there.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're going to have time to get into it. We had a circumstance in New Hampshire with a bill where somebody was trying to regulate how the government would relate the Medicaid expansion rules to mental health as far as the NICS list was concerned. And J.R. Holt tried to do some good, and the state has pretty much snapped the trap on him. And so we'll get into that maybe next hour.
Mm-hmm.
Snapping the trap doesn't sound good.
No. They're pretty much going to use what happened to Put as many people on the next list
Yes,
as they can.
that's the goal.
Between that and the no-fly list, which has no due process to get on or off.
Right.
And if anybody didn't see Annie McCluster F on Close-Up last weekend, they should try and find a copy of that. She's very...
It's probably on WMUR.
Yeah, it is.
.com.
She can be very appealing and sound very sensible, but when so Josh was tackling her on the topic of guns, and what was interesting is how she basically makes the non sequitur, the non-logical jump from so it's bad to have guns in the hands of people who've pledged allegiance to ISIS, and leaves it hanging out there that therefore anybody that's remotely suspected of connection to terrorism could be banned from getting a gun. Madam, you go out
unless you're part of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, you go out there and find me the people that have pledged allegiance to ISIS before they do the deed, because they tend to announce it as they do the deed, like the guy in Orlando did.
And you can't do that. That's profiling, which is how the entire policing industry works. The entire policing industry and the justice system is based on profiling. You can't find a suspect without profiling. Every TV show with an ICS in the name of it is all about profiling.
And what do you think Criminal Minds is about?
Profiling.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is about figuring out the psychology of the perp, and of course the mens rea, that thing which Hillary has, but nobody will fess up to.
The entire basis of it is intelligent use of prejudice based on the understanding of what you know about human behavior, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And you can't not use it. You have to. Everybody does.
One would think it would be
Everybody
common
does.
sense.
When you're walking through the mall, you are looking at people and you are making prejudicial decisions, positive and negative, about what you see. Every single day. It's human nature.
Right.
It's how we survive. It's how we took over the planet. That's how you do it. But they've turned it into this awful word that means that you hate
You're a bigot.
black people because you're a police officer. And so then you get all this violent rhetoric in various forms from the Jesse Jacksons of the world and the Barack Obamas of the world and Loretta Lynch's of the world, and people who won't say anything against it,
And
not
why
in
is
specific
that?
terms.
Why is that?
Because it advances the agenda.
What advances the agenda?
Well, we talked about it earlier. Destabilize.
But those that don't believe it, why aren't we speaking out more about it?
I don't know. We're doing it right now.
We are, but I mean, why are so many people afraid to speak out?
Well, they don't necessarily know. I mean, I know people who still believe the news, and the news controls the message, and the message is what the political class wants it to be. They're, part and parcel. The only time we ever get even remotely unbiased news is when we have Republicans in power. That's and it depends on who they are.
That's right.
And that's the only shot we have at any kind of truth and investigative vigilance.
I think we just have a lot of lazy out there. That's
Well,
I think a lot of people are just lazy and they don't want to deal with it, and so they would rather just let it flow. And that will never happen here kind of thinking.
Well, you just tweet about it and go have your Eggo waffle or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Everybody stay tuned. Warning, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
Rock on.